In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a dry underpainting for black fur using coloured pencils. Hi and welcome to the next part of the German Shepherd black fur tutorial. I've already shown you in the previous videos how to transfer your line drawing over onto your support, also how to choose the colour of your support and look for the colours within the black fur. On the previous video I showed you how we created the eyes, and now we are moving on to creating the underpainting. Now for this one, if I was doing this as a normal portrait, say a commission piece or a piece of my choice and not a tutorial, I would probably have done the underpainting using either watercolour pencils or even pan pastels in places, just to get that rich intensity of the depth of value of the blacks and the deep colours really quick, really effective and early on. You guys have asked me to do a full tutorial using dry pencils, so here I'll be showing you how to create the same effect using just dry pencils from start to finish, so a pure pencil piece, and I'll be using Polychromos. So I start off, literally I've got all my line drawing down, and because I've used the an indentation method to transfer my lines over, I can rub my pencil now over those lines really lightly. So make sure that you've checked out and done my pressure test. There is a video for that, I'll pop the link up in here. So what I do first of all is I start with my darkest tones and colours and start to literally, I call it colour blocking. So if you just think of it really simple, that we're just blocking in shapes and colours. So all we're doing is I look first of all for the darkest shapes and start to map those in. Now obviously with this being a black dog, I've just gone in straight away with my black pencil. We'll build up so many layers over the top of this with indigos, violets, purples, all different blues, even some pink going in there. And what we're doing is we want to see past all of the fur texture. You need to ignore all of the texture for now. Ignore the fact that it's a dog for now, really. All we want to do is look past it all at the depth of the shadow, tone, value and the colours that are there in that underpainting. So underneath all of the fur, once you've done this method a few times, you'll understand it. It'll all click into place. Same with seeing the colours. Some of you have said about you're struggling to see some of the colours. It comes with practice and it just comes with looking. I've mentioned it before that a lot of people that come onto my workshops, day one, at the start of day one, they're really nervous because I give them, say with this, I do this as a workshop, this one, I'll give them all of my pencils that I'm using, but this will be my palette of colours that I see with my eyes. Now some of the people in the room will probably see the same or similar colours. Other people's eyes might translate and see different colours again, but at the start of the workshop there's usually a lot of concern and worry from all of my students because they say, I can't see the colours, but I can't see that blue, I can't see, why is the purple, why have you got a pink, it's black dog, it should just be black, and shades of black, grey and white. And this is where obviously my techniques do differ from some others. Some people would choose to draw a black dog just using black, white and all the shades in between, no colour going in there at all. Other people do tend to inject maybe a hint of an indigo or a dark green or a very dark red to build their blacks, their darkest areas. I tend to use a lot more colours, and with this one I am going to push you to try to see even more colour. But if you don't see them, you don't have to put them in, but I'd like you to try, because once, like on my workshops, once people start to see the colours, all of a sudden you see the light bulb moment and it all clicks, and that's it then. They are off and running and often finding more colours that even I didn't see, or didn't see to use in there. So first of all, you're seeing here, I've just got my black polychromo. You see I'm holding my pencil about half the way up, so you can tell that a very, very light pressure. The further up the pencil that you hold it, the lighter the pressure of application. Again, please, I will refer you back to my pressure test video and you will understand what I mean by a pressure. I'm using about a pressure 3 here on my scale. So you'll see I'm going pretty much all over, popping in I'm just trying to bring up all of my lines here as well, all of my indentation lines I placed right at the beginning, but I'm mapping in all of my shape of this German Shepherd. I also want to just remind you as well that treat your surface, your support, so in this case obviously I'm using the Pastelmat, Clairefontaine Pastelmat. Treat your support as your mixing palette. This is incredibly important to keep in mind. So obviously with experience you start to plan ahead. I know what colours I'm going to be adding in after this. I'm just putting in, let's say, an initial tone using a light layer of my black in all my darkest areas, but I know that I'm going to be building so many layers over the top, and people often ask the question in the forums, how does everyone blend their pencils? It's simple, you just blend with more layers of pencils and you blend and mix your colours the same as you would with a palette. Say if you're using watercolours or acrylics or oils, you would use your surface here to mix your pencils. Try it on a sample piece. Just take like this, pop a really light layer of black down, go over the top then with a touch of dark indigo, go over the top of that again with some Caput Mortem Violet, another light glazing of black over the top, build again, more dark indigo, more Caput Mortem Violet, and then on one area of it just start to add in, I don't know, a warm grey 3, and then add a warm grey 1, and then add in a dark indigo again. You'll just see, especially on the Pastelmat, each layer adds more pigment down, and also it blends with the previous layer and mixes with that colour. So you start to get a variation of black, but it's a bluish, reddish black with lightened areas using the warm grey where you've warmed it up, or a cool grey to cool it down. It's something that you can only understand once you've put it into application. I can explain it to you, I can show it to you, but you'll only understand fully when you've tried it yourself and you go, ah, that's what she means. That's what she means when she keeps saying this and to do that and to use this pressure and to look for those colours and build it from dark to light. 'Cause what I'll do as well, I will work from dark to light on my undertones. So I put in my black, then I put in my next darkest colours, which are usually my dark indigo and my Caput Mortem Violet. I will use a Caput Mortem in the odd area where it's slightly warmer. I've got in here as well, I've got a Payne's Grey, which is very dark. And I've also then will pull in, I've got an I start to mid up to what I call my mid-tones then. So I'll start to use my Indanthrine Blue for those real blue areas, a Mauve, which is my purple. I've also got to say the Caput Mortem falls into the mid-tone range. I've got a little touch of the Prussian Blue, but again, you don't need to use that one, I'd stick to the Indanthrine. And then I see also pop in tones, I've got a Pink Madder Lake, and then I'm using a warm grey 3, cool grey 2, touch of nougat, little touch of cinnamon in there as well. But gradually, I'll say each one goes down in different areas and in different pressures and different numbers of layers mixed with the pencils underneath. I hope that makes sense. So just a word whilst I've got this in real time here, just so you can see. If this video has been sped up, but the full duration of the recordings I've put together for this underpainting add up to just over 2 hours of footage, so that should give you an idea on, that is just literally sitting down and working. Not stopping to sharpen my pencils, prepping up or anything like that. It's just over 2 hours to do this application. So you can just see all I'm doing here is just lightly and loosely keeping an eye on my reference photo as I start to colour in. Just look at it, that you're just colouring in shapes, picking out shapes, shadows, and we just want to fill the whole area, and then we'll just keep repeating the process and building. Kind of working in the direction of the fur, but at the moment you can see I'm just doing quite big round on the side of my nib of my pencil so I can get more pigment down, because it's a wider surface area on the side of my nib. One word now as well about preserving the tooth of your paper. So apologies if I've explained this before to people on videos and I'm repeating myself, but obviously some people might be starting out with this video, so they won't have heard this before. But anyway, it serves as a good reminder to us all. My explanation, my way of thinking with the Pastelmat is, if you think about the Pastelmat is the tooth being like mountains and valleys. So the surface that your pencil, if you lay your pencil lightly down on your Pastelmat, it will rest on the top of those mountains. And then what we want to do is to build the layers of pigment so that we gradually fill those valleys, and then by the end we'll have a lovely smooth surface, still with enough tooth to work on, but we'll have built up lots and lots of pigment into those valleys and filled it up so it starts to smooth out and we start to lose that rough graininess. So you'll see where the pencil's going down here, it instantly pulls out how rough and grainy. Just zoom in on the screen if you can't see it, the roughness of the paper. Now I know some artists that do use this paper and they don't put near as many layers down as I do in the method I show you. And this is where it's all about. It's about pushing on through and being brave enough, one, to fill that tooth and carry on working it, but two, it just means that your piece will shine out above others, but because you have really pushed and built so much more depth in your underpainting, and also the layers that follow on from the underpainting, all of the texture layers, it makes such a difference. I can zoom in on a lot of artists' work online that work on Pastelmat, and I also look at how long it's taken them to do the piece as well. And you know in your head that there's no way they've got those layers down, and once you zoom in, you see all the rough grain of the tooth coming through. And it might seem on a small screen to have the desired effect, but in reality, if you could see that piece, you'd be able to see that roughness. And personally, I choose not to allow that roughness to shine through, unless, for example, I know on the snow leopard tutorial that I did allow it to shine through on the nose area, because the texture of the paper, the roughness, actually was there to be seen in the reference photo. That texture sort of emulated what I could see in the reference. So I used less pigment in those areas and used the texture of the paper to my benefit, or to my advantage. So I've shown you there. I'm going to start speeding up now, because all I'm going to be doing is repeating this process now. I'm going through I've just moved down to the bottom area. We're leaving the tongue and the mouth area, and we're leaving the nose for now, because I want to put those together as full separate tutorials, so they'll slot in with this one. But it means then I can also put them out as a nose, how to draw a whole dog's nose, and how to do a tongue. I don't want to get started on the nose and then come away to work on another area of fur. If I was working this without it needing to be a logical tutorial for you guys, I could work all over in any method that I wanted to, in any order. So I'd probably be adding a little bit of pink into the tongue and some blues to the nose, just so I've got it a bit balanced out. But to be honest, it's much more difficult working like this for a tutorial, because I have to try and keep it all logical for you guys to be able to follow. So I sped up there just to apply the rest of the black layer to the bottom area of the dog. Now I've slowed it down again here because I'm going in next with I said I was going to do the black, and then we'll come up and we'll do dark indigo and our Caput Mortuum violet, touches of Caput Mortuum, and also Indanthrene blue. So repeating exactly the same process as before, but looking at that reference photo, and wherever I can see hints of blue coming through or indigo on that reference, I start to add it in. Again, still colour blocking, still loosely holding that pencil, because what we can do is once we've got a nice light coverage all over, we can start to intensify, and that's where we repeat our layers. So where we've got inside of that ear, it's really solid black, we will start to go in there with heavier layers and start to push. But we don't want to crush the tooth of that paper, remember, because if you go in there with a sharp pencil and press really hard, really early on, you'll crush those mountains, and all you'll be left with is maybe a ability to add 2 or 3 layers rather than lots and lots, say up to 40 light layers, light pressure layers. So this will speed up again in a second, just where I continue to work all across the top, the other ear, the top of the head, all the way down through using my dark indigo. And here as well I'm adding in a touch of the Indanthrene blue, and probably I'll pop in a touch of the mauve here as well. So there's the Caput Mortuum going in the warm areas. Caput Mortuum violet, dark indigo. I'm just rotating between them all, getting the application down on that ear. And again, we'll just repeat this all the way from top to bottom. And it's so desirable here to go in straight away and also start to add in your lights. We don't want to do that quite yet. It's great because it gives an instant dramatic effect by popping in your lights, but we want to get all our darks in first. So you see here where I popped in some of that blue and Caput Mortuum, I'm now going in and intensifying. Like I said, I'd go back in with a little bit more pressure, using my black again just to start to intensify and build the depth of that tone. See, I could have done this, I could have done all of these layers first of all, and then gone in with a solvent. Solvent would have dissolved all of the oils, sunk the pigment down into the tooth, and really aided us in getting to where we want to be quicker. But again, because you wanted this as a full dry pencil tutorial, I'm sticking to just doing it all by building the light layers of pencil. If you want to use a solvent, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that you've got a nice build-up of layers. Okay, so just going in now over the top with a layer of dark sepia. Again, just thinking it's quite a warm hue, again, the dark sepia, but now I am starting to mix in one of my warm greys. That'll be the warm grey 2 or 3, I'll double check, warm grey 3, and if you look really closely now, you'll see as soon as you add a light colour pencil down over the top, you see the graininess of the tooth pop through. So what I do is later on I will I call it knocking back. Knocking back is just a term that I use for going back over my light areas using my darks again. So I'll go over, you'll see here I'm going over some of those greys already with my black. I'll then go over it with my blues and my violets, because it's a case of until that toothiness, the roughness has gone, I don't want to add any fur detail. So I have to keep repeating the process. Obviously if you use a slightly heavier pressure in application, your pigment will go down quicker. You risk damaging the paper. I prefer everyone to build up using super light layers. It takes longer, yes, but if you think about this, that you'll have a whole dog underpainting in place, or I did, in just over 2 hours, that's not too bad going when it comes to colour pencil work. Yes, there's many hours of more colour blocking and building the fur texture and details after that. But it's a case right early on with this just to have some patience and keep building the layers. You see here where I added the light's all gone now. I've knocked it all back. Repeated by going in with my blues, my indigo, my black, some Indanthrene blue, Caput Mortem, and some Prussian blue there as well. And I'll keep repeating that process until I've got my underpainting to a nice level of build-up of pigment, so that then I can start to go in and add a bit of refinement. Someone did describe to me, it was a really nice explanation of how my pieces come together. They said it is almost like the first work in progress pictures look like, you can see it's a dog, but it looks out of focus. And then gradually, as I build the layers, it becomes more and more in focus, more sharp, more defined, with colour and with detail. So again, there'll be no detail in any of this underpainting. It's literally about shapes, shadows, and undertones. It's not about fur texture, detail, or anything. It's very, very loose, and then each layer just gradually gets tighter and tighter, more refined, and right near the end, that's when we sharpen up and add the texture and build the detail. So you'll see here in places there are areas where I didn't put the black down underneath. I've got the black right in the eye socket areas, you know, the underneath the brow there. A few little shapes underneath the eye, but it's not all over. So some of this now, the blues and the violets are going down onto the virgin paper, and then I will blend some black over the top, but that's going down as my foundation colour. But still sticking to all the same pencils and just repeating exactly what we did on that ear to start with. I cannot stress either the importance of keeping your eyes on that reference photo. My eyes are probably on my reference photo more than my drawing. I often watch people at my workshops. I'll watch them from a distance and I'll be reminding them, keep looking at your reference, keep looking at that reference, keep looking at that reference. And I can see them, they'll look at the reference a couple of times and then they can look back at their drawing, and for about a minute I can see their eyes haven't gone back to that reference. So they've started to forget what they've seen in the reference and started to put in what they think should be there. And then they go back and go, something's wrong. Something's not quite right. I don't know why. And it's like, yeah, because your eyes have wandered from your reference. You started to make it up and put things in that aren't there. And that's when you start to lose your way. So please keep looking at that reference. See, I've actually got my printout right next to me. And I've also got my tablet that I'm zooming in and moving around. So that I can zoom in on that one just to pick up any details that I know I'm going to put in later on, and look underneath the detail if I need to see the tone a little bit more. So here I've zoomed in, I've decided that, okay, it's a little bit pinker up around there than just warm grey. So I've grabbed my cinnamon. So I'm going to mix a little bit of cinnamon, and if you think what's under there already, we've already got black, dark indigo, Caput Mortem violet, some Indanthrene blue, some dark sepia, touch of Prussian blue, some warm grey 3, and then another layer of the black, dark indigo, violet, blues, now a touch of the cinnamon. And the cinnamon we're using to pull out some of the highlights that we can see within the ear. We don't want to go in there with like a bright light grey or a white that's really harsh. We want a soft, light mid-tone, if that makes sense. But say all of these layers are blending together. It's not a pure blue there, it's not a pure black, it's not a pure cinnamon. It's a mix of all of those layers together. And remember, this ear, we're just colour blocking the underpainting. This is not the finished detail going down here in the slightest. Even when we finish this underpainting, we probably might be at the quarter of the way stage. I'll know when I finish recording the whole thing, when I finish the whole piece, how many hours it takes. So we can look and go, okay, the eyes took about 40 minutes. We did the line drawing as well previous to that. So the line drawing, then the eyes, and then this underpainting. Brings us to probably about 3 hours in. So we're looking at 12 to 15 hours possibly total for the whole dog. But like I say, we shall see, because some of the areas that are super dark we will leave. We'll build up the pigment, but then we won't be adding too much detail because we'll let the negative space do all the talking. So what I've done in that ear, I'm just repeating that now. Coming up, I work obviously top to bottom and left to right. A little bit more logical for you guys whilst the camera can only fit so much of it in. I can only zoom in. I could zoom out now, but you wouldn't see me working quite as close up. If I was doing this myself, like I put the black top to bottom, I'd probably do then a sweep of colour, right, which means to me a layer all over of one pencil. So I work, or everywhere that I see dark indigo, I'd put that in all over the dog. Then wherever I see the Caput Mortem Violet, I'd put that in all over as well. So I'd be working the whole piece at the same time, a little like a painter does. But because of the tutorial, I'm keeping the camera just on this top section, so it's a little bit illogical for me to work this way, but I'm doing it so that you can see how I do the underpainting completely in one area before I move down to the next. Hope that makes sense. So here I've gone in now, I've got a cool grey, let me just check. So a cool grey 2. No, it's a cool grey 3, that one. But I will double check. It'll all be in the written tutorial for you guys anyway. So again, I'm using that light grey again to rub over the pigment that's already there, and then that will make that tooth, that toothiness really shine through and show me exactly where I need to go back in and build even more pigment. It will give me a real idea of where I'm at with building those layers of pigment. So again, now where I've added some of that light grey, I'm going to knock some of it back with a black, but I'm also just going in and intensifying right inside of that ear. Can you see, compare the left ear now to the right ear. The right ear has only got 1 or 2 layers of pigment down. So the left ear now, I've got what, 5 or 6 goes in with the darks. So, and again, we'll add so many more when we get to the next part of the tutorial series as well. But this is hopefully going to give us enough depth. If I went in there now with pan pastel, black pan pastel, just one sweep, it would give me that lovely depth of intensity that I'm looking for. But, like I said, we're not using pan pastel, we're not using solvent, we're not using watercolour pencils, we're not using any method apart from how to build all of this using our dry pencils. Okay, so you see I'm rotating where I'm rotating between my dark and my light, and I'm using that grey just to mix and blend those dark tones to show me, and to get more pigment down, like I say, to show me where that tooth is still really obvious. It's very light up over on this area at the top. It's where the light is hitting the dog the most. And you'll always find, usually on most dogs, the light reflects where the stop of the nose is. The stop of the nose is where the nose meets the skull. So it's basically the point where the nose meets the skull and curves upwards. Now usually the light hits that little spot there between the eyes the most, and that is the most reflective. But also on this one we've got a little bit of backlighting or side lighting, so it's hitting that left hand side top of the head quite brightly. So I'm just starting to add some of that cool grey in across the top of the head there, so that as I build the layers dark to light, that area will be lighter than the area to further down around the brow to the left hand side of the head. It all makes sense, honestly, as you work it through. So here on the right hand side, this right ear is a little bit warmer than the left ear. So you'll see here I've got a touch of nougat going down that right hand side. And also with this as well, because I work under quite bright daylight lamps, you'll find that it is reflecting off the oil that's in the pencils, the oil binder in the pencils. The light is reflecting a little, so it's not giving you a full, true image of the depth of tone that's going down. I did adjust all of my lights for this, but it's just one of those things with working, especially with blacks and darks. It's pretty close, and it'll be much better once we start to do the detail layers later on, because I'll be able to zoom in more as well. But I did notice with this that the angle, because I've got to get the camera in, the microphone and lots of other bits, the angle that the lights were at were reflecting a tiny bit up to that top right hand side. I also found it was an absolute nightmare trying to photograph this one. I'm not sure if it's the purple paper. It's the first time I've used this purple aubergine hue of the Pastelmat paper, but for some reason whenever I tried to take a photograph, it was just the dog itself, the blacks were coming out really green, so I have no explanation for that at all, apart from I didn't want it to look green. So I'll pop up a scan at the end of this video to show what the underpainting was like by the end of this stage, and the scan gives a much truer representation of the colours and the values, so hopefully that will help. So again, over on this right hand side of the ear, that's where that light is catching, so I've gone in there again with that. There's the warm grey 3 again, just starting to, it helps, you'll find 2 or 3 layers of rotating between your darks, your midtones and this warm grey 3. You start to see that softness of the fur, that soft fluffiness starting to appear, and that's even before you've intentionally gone in there to try and create any of your texture. So exactly like we did over on the left ear, we're just starting to repeat that over on the right ear now, starting to lift some of the areas with our lights, so using this warm grey. And then we can go back in any area that we've took too light, we can go, or we've lost some of our colour, we can just go back in over the top with some of our midtones and our colours, and just increase the intensity. Like I say, I need to see how dark it is on the left hand ear. I need to go back in over the top with my blacks, my dark indigos and my violet, and increase the intensity inside that right hand ear as well. So I'll continue working this. See, I've brought the cool grey in there now as well. So I'll continue working this to a point where I feel that you should be able to understand exactly what I'm doing and why, and then I'll speed it up and we'll just be repeating this process all the way down from top to bottom, exactly like we did with the initial loose rough underpainting that we added in. Okay, so exactly like we did on the left hand side there where I'm rubbing the pencil now, just starting to add some of that cool grey up over the rest of the centre of that forehead. Obviously I'll pop the reference will be up in the left hand corner, top left hand corner for you to see, but obviously if you're following this, have the actual reference photo up on a printout or a separate screen as well, but I will make sure it's on up here in the left corner so you can see it. But again, this is real time, so you can see just quickly I'm just keeping the pencil down pretty much on the paper for a lot of this, just backwards and forwards colouring in, exactly like you used to when you were a kid, just backwards and forwards with the pencil, up and down, side to side, round and round, following the direction, keeping an eye on that reference photo. Exactly the same again. If you take an area too light, you can just knock it back with your darks. If an area is too dark, just lift it up through with your midtones up to your lights. And that's the beauty of the pastel mat. You can just keep building those layers, but only if you're putting them down as light pressure layers. You'll find I repeat this, all of what I say, over and over in these videos, but all for good reason. So we're going to, I believe, speed up in a second. But you can see here the form is starting to come together. And you can see already how many times I've gone over some of these areas with the pencil. Still holding it quite loosely though. Just looking at the areas as well that are warm or cool, with my greys to see which one needs to go in there. Usually where the light reflects, it's a cooler grey. And it's usually warm. I use my warm greys for almost muddying and almost like a cream or a brown. That's what I use it for. Almost like in the areas that look ochre, I use the warmer greys to mix and create like a dirty colour. Here I've got the cool grey too. Just lifting some of the areas to give a nice hint at the contrast that's going to come later on. All of this will get knocked back again on the next layers. But again with this drawing, it's the same thing. If you can leave it at any point. If you want to work this this layer, this underpainting layer, a bit further, a little bit more refined, you could leave it there if you wanted, if you were happy with to have, you know, a looser, less detailed picture. It's still in proportion, it's still all the right colours, it's still a German Shepherd, it's still this German Shepherd. I'm just going in over the top now with my white. Again, I'm super enhancing the super brightest areas, but this will all get knocked back. It just means that under there, like I say, remember when I said if I had now a dark indigo over the top, the dark indigo where it's black undertones, it will go down as a slightly bluish version of the black. Where I've got the white, it will go down as a really, really, really light pale indigo blue. Where I've got greys and violets, it will go down as a bluish tinge to those underlayers. So exactly like we did across the ears and the top of the head, we are going to work our way down I can see from this as well, the lighting in the camera is not liking some of the movements here. One of the things I'm doing at the moment, I've been looking this morning, because I'm looking to get my studio rebuilt, so I'm going to have like a soundproof area, and also I want the lights set up, because obviously the lights that I use are for drawing, the daylight lamps. Now I obviously need something else in here as well for the recording side of things, so that it keeps a nice even tone to the lighting. So you can just see here it's dipping between, as I move my hand around, it's almost like it's focusing on my hand, so it's just changing the tonal values. But anyway, it's the technique that you're following. So you can see here I've put those lovely blues down through the down through blue, Prussian blue, dark indigo now, all down through that facial area. And it's just a case really, like say, all you're doing, you pick out your shadows, fill those in, you pick out your mid-tones, fill those in, you pick out your highlights, put those shapes in as well, and then once you've got it all coloured in, you just start building and pushing the values of each layer, each area. Colouring in. I should just change this to Lisa's colouring in tutorial, shouldn't I? So just going back over the top there now. As I see, like I say, as I see different colours, I'll just go back in, add them in. I'm going over now with the black, so I'm knocking some of those brightness of the blues and the violets and everything back a little bit with my black. But then if I knock it back too much, I'll go back in and lift it all up again. And you'll find as well, you might need to adjust if you don't use this. I did a video at the start of this series showing why I chose this colour paper. If you don't have this colour paper, or you simply don't want to use this colour paper and you choose to use white or grey, blue, you'll just need to adjust your palette of pencils to accommodate whatever colour it is that you're using as your base. If you use my palette of colours on a white support, they're going to come out slightly more intense, slightly bluish, so you might want to just lift out some of the Prussian or Indanthrene blue, unless you're going for that really nice bluey effect. But your colours will go on obviously a lot truer. Mine are all going down with a slight undertone of that base aubergine purple colour. And also think ahead, because I'm not sure yet whether we will do knife work on this one at the end. But again, if you've seen my knife work videos that I sometimes do, I probably will do some, because I want to do possibly the texture of the fur around his neck and his ruff. Possibly a little bit in the ears. So I will use my knife at the end. So think about your choice of support, the colour, and what will happen when you use the knife. So with mine, obviously when I cut back, I scrape through the pigment at the end, it's going to be this purple colour of the paper that's going to show through. If you're using white, then if you had, like say, whiskers or anything like that that were white that you want to lift back out, you'd be lifting. And again, you could use it really well if you were working on white paper. You could use the knife on the area under the eye and up over that real bright highlight area, and you can really put in some fine white wisps up there as well to intensify that. And like I say, if you're working on anthracite or a really dark colour, you'll be pulling through that colour with your cuts with the knife at the end. So all these little things all come with practice. Knowing which pencils you're going to be putting down in roughly what order, that all comes with practice. And same with what colour paper you use, and then, like I said with the knife just now, what you save for later on, you know, which technique or at what point are you going to create extra texture or what method are you going to use. It's all things that you have in your head, usually at the beginning, before you start. You've got the envision, I have anyway, I have a vision in my head of how a piece is going to look by the end and the effect I want to achieve, but only I can see that vision in my head. When I do commission work, my clients usually know my work quite well and know how I work, so I do have to ask them to please trust me, because, like I say, a brown dog might at this initial stage look quite purple, same as this black dog can look quite blue. A client that doesn't know my work might go, my dog's black, it's not blue, make it black. And at that point I'd be wondering, well, do I want to do this commission if they don't understand how I work, because I'm not just going to use black and grey pencils for a dog that I see so many rich colours in. Obviously if you're starting out with commission work, you might be more nervous to turn away a commission, but as time goes on, you want to stay true to yourself. You'll find that even if you did agree to go, okay, yeah, that's fine, I'll do it more black, grey and white, no colour, but you're really going to create, you'll be going against how you naturally work and how you naturally see. I'd probably recommend that you go and adjust your photo to being just monochromed, black and white with tones of grey, rather than, and take out all of the colour, and it'll make life much easier for yourself. So you see here I said about some of those extra colours that we would be bringing in. Just to prove a point, I brought in, here's the pink Madder Lake. I've used it a few times in some of my pieces. I've used like a carmine, I've used like a few different colours, pinky, purpley colours. It works really well with this dog, and whether it's something to do with that paper colour that I'm using as well, I'm not sure, but I'm really liking it. And some of this will vanish, but I do hope to put it back in closer to the end. I did initially think that I'd be putting in, using like the light and medium flesh for this, but it felt right to use that pink instead. So I've got Caput Mortem going down the side here. This is Caput Mortem, not the Caput Mortem Violet. Again, it's much warmer and lighter. It's very warm down the outside edge of that dog there. It's quite warm in this rough neck area altogether. So again, it's just going to be quite loose down here, quite chunky. Just pulling out all the colours first of all, putting in all the dark contrasts, exactly like we've done further up. Until we've got our whole shape filled in. And again, if you want to skip forward and get that tongue in, that's absolutely fine. I know it is annoying me looking at it as well, like I want the nose to be in place and I want the tongue to be done. So you'll notice I've done this bottom area slightly differently. I didn't go in and enhance the blacks or the dark indigos first. I could see more colour down here, so I've gone in with that Caput Mortem, and I believe it was, let me just check which blues I've used. I did use a touch of the Prussian blue. I did have some Delft blue, but I decided that was a bit too bright. Yeah, it's mostly the Indanthrin blue and my Caput Mortem that's gone in initially. Now I'm going in with dark indigo, and now I'll go in and increase the intensity of the dark, the black in places, and lift some of it up as well. And then we will be close to finishing this underpainting. See? Still holding pencil really loosely, holding on its side there. Working quite quickly, loosely, just filling in the shapes. As long as you keep your eye on that reference, you shouldn't lose your place, and you should have everything, all of these shapes and shadows in the right place. How many times have I said that in this video, I wonder? Keep your eye on that reference. So say if you did want to use solvent, or if you wanted to put down your base layer, if you happen to want to put down the watercolour pencil underpainting, this is what you'd be doing. You'd be putting down still your colour blocking, just like this with your watercolour pencils, and then you would add water once this layer is done, or you would add solvent once this was all done. So I believe we are coming close to the end. Just slowed it down again now. I'm just putting in hints of some of that, where the light's hitting some of this fur down the bottom. Just switching between the cool grey and the warm grey for that outer edge there. If you're unsure of some of these, how these pencils mix, just have a spare sheet of paper. It only takes a couple of minutes to take some time out. Put down your black, your dark indigo, you could put more some violet, start adding some greys over the top, repeating the process. See what hues you come out with, how much pressure you used, and also what the final value and colours are. If you think about this drawing, then if it's going to take 12 to 15 hours of your time, does it really make much difference if you took 2 or 3 minutes out every now and again just to mix and play with some colours on your support, on a little test sheet? I know we're all guilty of impatience and we want to rush on and get to the finish post, but Pastelmat and colour pencils is a test of patience. So you really, I've had some people quit my channel because they said they don't want to see my videos in real time, they don't want to see this amount of detail, and it's like, there's no shortcuts. If you don't want as much detail, you don't want the depth of how I create, then obviously my tutorials aren't right for you, but there are no shortcuts in colour pencil. So it makes sense really just to, even this piece, if this is the first time you're doing a tutorial or colour pencils or a black fur, don't beat yourself up. Don't make this the most perfect result. You're going to learn so much in this piece. And if something goes wrong, you'll go, I did that. I could have done it that way. That's why she said that, or I'll do it that way next time. This is your learning piece. If you take your time and do it all step by step, and you understand each step as you go along, you'll get really good results. If you rush ahead or ignore certain points, you will notice at the end of like, oh, maybe if I'd done that bit that she mentioned, then that would have explained why I haven't quite achieved that bit. But again, don't beat yourself up. So I'm just mixed there between, like I say, cool grey, I had a 3, a 2, and a warm grey 3. Just check that warm grey. Oh no, warm grey 2 I was using there as well. So just mix between those, touch of the cinnamon going in, touch of that pink malolate gone in as well. And that really is bringing us close to the end of this underpainting video. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you're watching this video at a later date and it's on my YouTube, please do give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and do subscribe to my channel. And if you're on my Patreon, I hope that you've enjoyed this stage of the tutorial, and we'll be on to the next stage in the next video. Speak to you again soon. Thank you.